Security forces on Christmas Island are bracing for another night of unrest after 3 days of protests and confrontation at the main detention centre. The latest riot comes just months after hundreds of detainees tore down fences and escaped from the centre. With the federal government just days away from signing the deal with Malaysia for offshore processing of asylum seekers, some refugee advocates are warning of more unrest. I spoke to Rintoul from the Refugee Action Coalition earlier. Rintoul, welcome to 7:30.
Yep, thank you.
Now, can you tell me what's happening on Christmas Island?
Well, I think early this morning the federal police actually broke into the detention centres, and there have been some very ugly scenes from what I've heard. They've battened people, they've kicked people, people have been dragged out of the compounds, presumably been taken to the Red One, the high security compound inside the detention centre. So you've got very frightened people, intimidated people, but you've also got very angry people.
Right, now is that what's happening here, that these are desperate people who've been told that they won't be granted asylum in Australia?
That's not quite true. People on the Christmas Island are still in process. Some people are waiting for security clearances, some are waiting for their appeals hearing dates, others are waiting for answers from their appeals. So there's no one that at the moment that is being told that they're going to be sent back.
Right, so is there a particular group that's behind this? How many people are actually involved in the violence?
Well, you might direct that at the federal police. I think the violence is coming from the federal police on Christmas Island, and tragically that's been the story since the demonstrations in March, and their behaviour and intimidation, the tear gas, the bullets, the use of battens today does nothing to ease the tensions inside Christmas.
But to be fair, Mr Rintoul, you'd have to say surely that the AFP are reacting to the situation that they're seeing in the detention centre.
There's been no property damage. No one's been assaulted. They may be concerned about fires in bins, but do you really have to batten people or put them in high security things because they've set fires in bins? And I think there's a history to this.
Well, let's look at the actual situation of the people, the asylum seekers who are involved in these incidents. What are they trying to get across? What do they think is going to be gained by lighting a fire in a bin, for instance?
Well, I think the fact is that the government and Serco, the Immigration Department, have turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to what are very serious concerns. The government told them in March that people who were waiting for security clearances would have answers by April, the end of April. They were told that their processing would be sped up. None of those things have happened.
Yes, but you're speaking to the people who are in the centre, so I want to know what are they telling you? What do they think is going to be gained from this violence?
They want the government to listen to their claims. They want the attention of the media. They want the attention of the international community.
Now, surely, Mr Rintoul, you'd have to concede that this has a terrible impact on public opinion towards asylum seekers.
I don't think that's necessarily the case. We saw similar incidents under the Howard government, and public opinion slowly changed in favour. I think most people, when they look at what's happening at Christmas Island, understand there's some kind of problem which the Immigration Department and the government isn't addressing.
All right, look, all of this is occurring within the context of this so-called Malaysia solution that could be signed as early as Monday, we're hearing. Does this have any impact on the wider situation on Christmas Island?
The people who are caught under the Malaysian deal are actually housed in this area separate from the main detention centre. Lilac compound is kind of semi-attached, but it's quite a separate area. So there's no immediate contact between the protests that are happening inside the main detention centre or the people in construction camp or Lilac that are caught by the Malaysia deal, but the same thing applies. I think the longer people go on being left in limbo, then there's no guarantee whatsoever that protests won't spread to those areas as well.
Okay. Just finally, what's going to happen in the next couple of days? Do you expect these protests, this violence to continue?
I think there will be more protests on Christmas Island. Exactly what has happened. I mean, some people have been injured in the process today, but as I said, whether it's today, tomorrow or next week or next month, unless the conditions inside the detention centres actually change, then there will be more protests. And the government either addresses that or it needs to understand the protests will continue.
Okay, Mr Rintoul, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.